we've had an absolutely nightmarish start to the stream. Just as I'm like, oh, let's get this done, let's do this, the camera decides to turn off and not work. So now, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. We're here. Welcome back to the channel. Now, I have no idea if the audio sounds fine. So me and McGinley have been sitting here in the lobby trying to get things started, trying to get things going, and basically saying, oh, well, your microphone is not working right, I can't hear you, you're lagging, blah, 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 all over the place. I go off to do a mic check, everything seems to be working fine. I come back, and apparently the microphone is still not working. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a hard one. It's been a tough one to set up. McGinley will be back in a moment. He's restarting his PC to see if he can hear me okay. So I'm hearing in the chat that I'm okay, I'm good to go. So we're going to get into it, we're going to get going, and we're going to talk about the Celts overseas. We're going to be talking about the Celtic players on international duty over the past couple of weeks as they prepare to return to Lennoxtown to train again with Celtic. And we're going to talk about how they've done over the course of the international break. Now, disclaimer alert, there is no, it's not done yet. There's still a couple of games left in the international duty, international break. I think Sweden, for example, still play tonight, which involves Carl Starfelt of Celtic, but the vast majority of players have completed their time on international duty. And we'll talk about the Scotland result, we'll talk about everything in between too, but on that note, let me just welcome into the stream a Mr. Ryan McGinley. I'm hearing that my audio is all clear, it's all good. Does it look all good, mate?
It looks and sounds fine. It must have been on my end then. I just had to restart my computer. Sometimes I don't really restart it for a couple of weeks, so
that's the same as me. That's fine. We're good to go, and that's what matters. And also, very quickly, before we get into talking about everything else, Celtic related and Celtic player related, if you are watching this live or you are watching later on as an uploaded video, we are so close. I think only about 220 subscribers away from hitting the big 30,000. Please, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button. Get us to 30k by, you know, I don't really care, anytime soon would be nice, and I appreciate every single person who presses the button, and so does Ryan for being the regular guest of the channel. Ryan, last night I never got the chance to sit down and watch Scotland take on Austria, but a magnificent result for Scotland, which of course included a couple of Celtic players and former Celtic players, but, you know, a magnificent result, mate. I expected us to go to Austria and struggle, and here we are, we've landed ourselves in a position where we could really challenge to try and get to Qatar now.
Yeah, we've made the group interesting again. I think the past couple of results, obviously, as Israel beating Austria, it's kind of opened up the group. Last night they were absolutely phenomenal. They played as a team. They dug in deep. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism towards Steve Clarke. I mean, I've been criticising him as well. I think the football that we play is really boring at times, but when the going gets tough, we've managed to pull out a result in Austria, which was incredible. A couple of shout-outs to Billy Gilmore and CALLUM Mcgregor, especially, in that midfield. They were absolutely brilliant, the two of them. And Shea Adams as well was doing a great job up front. But, do you know, we've made this group interesting again, and we can... It's you look at those fixtures and you're like, they're favourable fixtures for us now. If we can get 9-10 points out of the 12, then I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, we should be. I mean, you're hoping that there's no traditional Scottish slip-up in there, you know. No way us will take on Moldova and we'll draw the game and Israel will jump over us in the group, but we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll touch wood that doesn't happen. Ryan, you'll be away to the B-team game this evening, I believe. To go and watch that and have a little dissect of the all things going. So we'll try and get through this as quickly as possible so I can let you get to the game. But we are here to talk about each of the players who have been on international duty, a quick reaction to how they've been and how that affects them moving forward here at Celtic. So we may as well start off with the home country. We may as well start with a name that you dropped a moment ago. We'll start with Mr. Callum McGregor, the captain of Celtic Football Club. Callum, what a performance last night, Ryan. Yep. Absolutely tremendous against Austria. I caught up with the game and I was very, very impressed. Alongside Billy Gilmore, absolutely superb.
John McGinn as well. I feel
John
bad
McGinn. Of course, John McGinn, everybody's favourite. But McGregor, he featured 90 minutes against Denmark. He played 25 minutes against Moldova. He featured in the 90 minutes, of course, last night as well. He just keeps playing football, Ryan. But, you know, for as poor as we were against Denmark, we see last night why he's so important to the Scotland setup and why he's going to be so good this season. This is the Callum McGregor we're expected to.
No, it should be working better than this, but I think you were talking about Callum McGregor and how well he done.
Yeah, the Callum McGregor we seen last night is the Callum McGregor you're hoping to see over a season for Celtic this year. What we've pretty much seen so far from him, he's been incredible, and that was what we got last night. And I'm hoping that we just get that over the course of the season for Callum McGregor, even after international breaks.
Yeah, definitely. And he was playing like a captain last night as well. Now, I know the captain of the team's Andy Robertson, but you seen it after Dyke scored his penalty. He was telling everybody to calm down. He's obviously taken the captain's role at Celtic and sort of incorporated that into his Scotland performances as well. But overall, he was absolutely brilliant. You see the amount of times he runs out with the ball, can go on those runs that maybe he's watched Dyer doing last season. Thought I can do them as well, because he's so good at just drifting with the ball, and he takes a lot of pressure off our defenders because he can just easily run with the ball 20, 30 yards. The biggest compliment I could say to Cal McGregor is that he doesn't play like a Scottish player or your sort of stereotypical sort of Scottish bruiser. He plays a bit like a Spanish sort of Italian midfielder. He's just so graceful in the ball. I would say the same for Gilmore as well, but Cal McGregor just looks like a completely different animal than last season.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the thing now. We've seen this night and day difference with Callum McGregor last year where he looked tired, he looked a little bit, done in. The legs were sort of gone for McGregor. The real promising thing is now, Ryan, is the fact that he's playing very well for Celtic and he's playing very well for Scotland. And right now, it shows no signs of slowing down. So that's a positive for everybody involved.
Yeah, definitely. It's good that he can sort of bring that form from his club and his country as well, and it can only benefit both. He's an integral part of Ange Postecoglou's plans, being the captain, named as the captain as soon as he came in, basically, and then he's an integral role of Steve Clarke's team as well. He's never out the team. I mean, it's a positive and a negative, but the fact that two managers trust him, and plenty of managers have trusted him before. I mean, he get games under Gordon Strachan as well, and obviously your former Celtic managers. He's very trustworthy in that midfield. He's at least a 6 or 7 every game when he's on this sort of form.
Yep. And finally, about McGregor, before we go into the next Scottish player at Celtic, a lot of people were giving Cal McGregor, especially after the Denmark game, and I think the whole team was in sort of deserving of criticism. After the Denmark game, there seemed to be a sort of emergence of folk who were really against McGregor and saying he wasn't good enough to be in this Scotland team. I think it's absolute nonsense. I know that he maybe hasn't been as great over the past 12 months, but I think that's reflected in how Celtic and Scotland have played at times. Now, I know it just made a major tournament, but it's hard to pick up that confidence level when you're struggling at a club level. I think that, for all the people, and of course it's mostly Rangers fans, for all the people who might be coming out and saying, oh, this and that would be better than McGregor in that team, I think that the sort of performance he had last night, Ryan, just proves that's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, he's a player very much in form, and he's a player that we can't really afford to have on the bench for Scotland. The way he's playing, he's the captain of Celtic. Our previous captain was in the Scotland team all the time until he retired. But he's not just there because he's the captain of Celtic. He's there because of his performances as well. He's been arguably one of our best players this season so far, and he deserves to keep his place in the Scotland team. He's very, very much relied upon by Steve Clarke. So, I mean, it's bad that he's going to be playing tons of games week in, week out, but I think it's just testament to how good a player he is.
The second player, you're talking about how he gets guaranteed into that team, basically. One guy who's not finding it easy to get into the Scotland team is David Turnbull. He only made 10 minutes out of the 100, not even 180, 270 minutes of football. Yep, 270 minutes of football. He only managed to rack up 10, played 5 minutes against Denmark, 5 minutes against Moldova. It's David Turnbull. Ryan, at the same time, you can look at it as a positive for Celtic, less minutes being taken out one of our best players, one of our most creative players. How do you look at it? Do you think he deserves more of a chance in the Scotland team? Because I think there was times, especially when we were playing Denmark, I was like, get Turnbull in the park earlier, man. He can offer us something. But then you do wait up and go, he could be better off with saving his legs for Celtic.
I know you can really be accused of being selfish, and I'm like that as well. I don't want the players playing 3 games in a row. But I think that Moldova game, I was watching the Moldova game, it was 90 minutes I won't get back. It was a game that I wanted Turnbull to be playing in. It was that sort of game that he could sort of dictate, because he'd be one of the best players in the park. He'd definitely be better than the Moldovan players, that's for sure. That would have been a great sort of chance for him to play 60, 70, 80 minutes for Scotland. He's not really had that sort of chance yet. But I would have liked to have seen him start at least one of the games, but at the same time, I'm not going to complain because he'll be in good condition for the weekend.
Yeah, and that's, important considering how integral he's been the last few games, Ryan. We've seen how well he started playing. It took a little while to emerge, but in that middle three, you're looking at, this is the thing, Ryan, you think about it, you've got three internationals playing in our best three at the moment. You've got Rogic, you've got Mcgregor and Turnbull. Three international players. Hopefully Turnbull will be playing as much minutes as the other two guys coming very shortly. I mean, at the end of the day, doesn't matter how many minutes he's playing for Scotland, Ryan, he's still going to be quality and he's still going to be a big part of Celtic's team this year.
Yeah, definitely. Turnbull's just, he was quite disappointing in the last game, obviously, against Rangers, but before then he dropped about 5 or 6 really good performances in a row, which is what we've been waiting for, because he didn't have the best sort of 3-4 games of the season. He looked a wee bit not like himself, but I think he was more getting used to Ange Postecoglou's methods. But now that he's integrated into the team and he knows what Ange wants from him, you're seeing the best out of him, and I can't wait to see him on Saturday because that's just a perfect game for him. And if Turnbull's in the mood, then I don't think we'll have any problems.
Lovely. Right, we'll dance through. We've got about 10-15 minutes left before Ryan has to leave for the B team game and he coughs his lungs up. Let's head over to one of the bigger negatives of the international break, and we'll head over to KYOGO Furuhashi, who sadly didn't complete his only appearance on his international. I don't know if you can hear me or make me out what I'm saying.
I can hear you now, yeah.
Lovely. KYOGO Furuhashi, blistering start to his life at Celtic. He's been brilliant, but he did go off the park injured for Japan on international duty. He was benched against Oman, but he came on to play against China. Didn't leave the park in the best condition though, Ryan. Is it a worry? There's been no real words about what's happened to him, but is it a worry what's going on?
The only thing that I've read about it, and it was the past 20-30 minutes, was that he might have a bruise on one of his bones that will keep him out of the game at the weekend, but he should be back for Thursday. That was the only sort of rumour that I've read. But it's very concerning when you see a player like KYOGO going down injured, who's been so instrumental to everything good that we've done this season so far. It's disappointing because he's on a really good run of form. Apart from that game against Rangers, I just don't. Even looking back in that Rangers game, I don't even want to think about it because we were in such a good sort of frame of mind before it, and then you had the whole international break to think about it, which was a bit annoying. But you just want KYOGO not to be out for too long and to come back and do what he was doing best, and that was scoring goals and making goals for the team. It's very disappointing that he got injured. A big game too. China Japan would be a massive game in terms of rivalries, I would assume. So it's gutting for him, but at the same time, it gives other people a chance to sort of stake their claim. Could be a baptism of fire for Giacomakis, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's mad because, we've been bigging him up, we've been loving him, and to see him kind of go off holding his knee or whatever it was, it is quite a scare. I reckon that it's looking okay. I think if it was anything serious, we would know by now. If it was anything beyond a kind of 3-4 week injury or anything like that, it would be said by now. They wouldn't keep us waiting. I think that it's the first thing that Celtic would want to address. Granted, Celtic's communication has been great at times, but I think they would want to address that and kind of give us the idea that we'll be expected to see Giacomakis as soon. I think he'll be okay. I don't think there's I seen a few people in the chat speaking about it earlier. I don't think there's any need to get too worked up about it. But that was it for him on international duty, basically. It was the only time he got to appear and he had to go off injured. I'm looking forward to seeing him back, though. When he comes back, it's all about getting him back into the middle of the park, right, isn't it? And getting him into that area that we know he can score goals in.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see this sort of new three amigos together. Him, Abada and Jota now as well. I want that to be a sort of partnership, a sort of fearsome partnership, especially in the league. European games as well, but you want teams in the league to be fearing coming up against those three. So hopefully it's just a sort of a slight knock and he's only out for maybe a couple of games rather than long term. That would be not ideal, especially for. Now, I know it's a good opportunity for Giacomakis to come in, but at the same time, there'd be a lot of pressure on his shoulders because he's come in, he scored a lot of goals last season. He'll automatically be known as the number one striker until KYOGO's back, so there'd be a lot of pressure on him. But I just hope I hope he's back sooner rather than later because he looks a class above most other players in Scotland.
Yeah, we'll go through two of the players who aren't going to be as exciting to talk about, I think, right now before we have more of a discussion on the key guys. Carl Starfelt only featured for 30 minutes this international break. Thus far, they are playing tonight. Sweden, they take on Greece. Giacomakis' nation against Carl Starfelt's. I don't believe Starfelt will probably feature tonight. He could come off the bench. The teams will probably be out just now, so he could be, but I don't think he'll be there. Starfelt played for 30 minutes against Uzbekistan. A lot of people were saying he was playing quite far forward, Ryan. He was playing in midfield. So does that give you a sort of idea that he could feature doing that for Celtic sometime in the future?
It's not ideal because we've been playing a midfielder as a defender already this season in Beaton. Yep. I don't want someone's best position. We've signed him for $4 million. I don't want his best position to be further forward. If we pay $4 million on a centre half, I want him to be good at defending.
Surely it comes into the situation though where that can't be. He's been playing for a club level at centre back for as long as we can look back on. Surely it's just a situation where Sweden have got options there and they've put him there and they've just exploited that situation.
I think it was an injury problem that they had, and they had to play Starfelt there, which probably says some positives about his sort of passing. We know his passing's good. That's never really been in question. It's his defensive capabilities that have been certainly questioned so far. But do you know, if he's versatile, then more power to us. But I want him to be good at defending first and foremost. I sound like a Celtic dad when I say that, but I just want him to have a really good defensive performance.
Yeah, we've had a very mixed bag of performances right now from Carl Starfelt. So, but when you've got Helander and Lindelof playing ahead of you, it's tough to break into the starting centre-half position. So, he has been shoehorned in there. Apparently done a decent enough job as they won against Uzbekistan. Nir Biton, the other guy, we don't expect to see Nir Biton playing in a Celtic shirt that often this season. He did play 2 of the 3 games, 90 minutes for Nir Biton in Israel's games. Of course, they were battered last night off Denmark. They won against Austria very convincingly. The other game they played was the Faroe Islands. And in one of the games, he managed to get an assist, right?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Was this Beaton you were talking about, or Abada?
Yeah, Beaton. Well, Beaton we're talking about here. We're talking about Beaton here.
I thought Abada got an assist. I think
he did as well. We'll come on to Abada, but Nir Beaton also managed to get an assist. I mean, this is why I said we'll run through Nir Beaton, because ideally we're not going to see him play that often for Celtic, but he is kind of a mainstay in that Israel national team now. It is quite good you get that link, I suppose, that him and Abada can get used to being together a lot of the time. I suppose that's the main positive you could take from that.
Yeah, definitely. It's good that they're both playing in the same team. It's not often we'll say that this season in terms of both being in the starting 11. I hope anyway, especially once Julian's back and maybe players like Scales and, I don't know, Urugide perhaps stake a claim. But he's an okay option, but maybe an okay option against like the bottom teams in Scotland. But as soon as if you're playing against the Rangers or Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, you don't want him anywhere near the team because know he's just he's a ticking time bomb, a walking mistake. I call him as well. And like Starfelt, he's good on the ball. He can pass the ball pretty well, but you want someone that can do the defensive work first and foremost. And it's already bitten us in the arse a couple of times this season.
Well, let's talk about the real person that we want to talk about when it comes to the Israeli national team. Let's talk about Liel Abada. He did only play for 6 minutes over the course of the 3 games. He didn't feature against Austria. He didn't feature against Denmark. He was given a go against the Faroe Islands. He came on the park with 6 minutes to go and assisted in their final goal of the game. Surprising he hasn't had... I know it's hard, it's difficult to get in ahead of the likes of Zahavi, and when they play a certain formation and style that might not suit the likes of Abada, but you'd think with the way he's been playing and with chipping into an assist as well in his 6 minutes, you'd think he'd try and get a bit more out of him against either Denmark or Austria.
I know, but Denmark and Austria, they're 2 massive games. They're the 2 other big teams in the group, or the other 2 big countries in the group apart from Scotland. You'd be wanting him to maybe play against, or maybe even start the games against the Faroe Islands or Moldova, but at the same time Israel are in a position that they need to pick up points, so they don't want to take as much risk. Listen, he's going to get tons of international caps in his career. I wouldn't be too worried about it at this moment in time. He's 19 years old. He could easily still be playing for the under-21s, but the fact that they have him in and around the team shows that he's not far off the first team. And that's just testament to the way he's been playing this season. He started like a house on fire, basically. His attitude, the sort of positivity he brings to the game, both on and off the pitch, I would say as well. On the pitch, he's an absolute diamond when he's on form, and off the pitch, he seems like a great guy. The way he's communicating with his teammates on Instagram and that. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's nice to see he's integrating well into a new country.
Very tech savvy, Ryan. Very tech savvy.
Well, Abada's very tech savvy as well. You know, I'm not complaining. I find it very, very easy to get behind Leo Abada. He's one of those guys that I just really like.
Grabs your eye straight away. And I guess as well, with not playing as many minutes, you can look at the advantages of that too when it comes to international breaks and when it comes to Celtic. They have minimised the risk of us losing one of our best attacking options so far this season, Ryan. So there is, as they always say, there's a silver lining in all the rest of it, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to find the positives in everything.
You have. Two more players in the first team to talk about very quickly. We'll start with Yusuf Yuranovich, who played all 3 games for Croatia, all 90 minutes he completed every single game against Slovakia, Slovenia and Russia, 2 of them being wins against Slovakia and Slovenia, 3-0 and 1-0 respectively, a 0-0 draw with Russia. And Yuranovich seems to be just staking his claim there. He seems to be grabbing that place, and he's featuring as a regular in the runners-up of the World Cup, Ryan. We have got our hands on a top player, I think.
Yeah, I think we've committed a serious robbery on Legia Warsaw. How have we got this guy for 2.5 million, 3 million? I hope he's one of those sort of like signings of the decade. We can go back and look on his career and be like, do you know, this guy was just class for the amount of money that we paid for him. I've seen wee clips of him, and he's always there or thereabouts for the Croatian team. He's always very much involved, which is great. He looks like a top quality player in the prime of his career, and he's the top right back for Croatia. And that's saying something, because Croatia's a very talented nation with a lot of really good players.
We know that firsthand after the sum up.
We do, and he played the 90 minutes in that game as well, so maybe that was when we started scouting him. But they're more known for their attacking players, but it's good that they've got good defenders as well. I noticed last night him and Barisic were playing as well. That's quite interesting. Both opposite sides are playing opposite sides of Celtic Rangers are playing on opposite sides of the Croatian national team. It's a small world, but it's good. It's good that he's getting game time. He looks as if he will be the starting right back going forward for Croatia, and long may it continue.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that he comes back and we do see him. And I don't want to take anything away from Anthony Ralston. His time will come again and he'll keep getting chances, I think, at Celtic. But it will be very interesting nonetheless to see Juranovic get on that right-hand side, Ryan, and play in his preferred position. I'm incredibly excited to see when that really kicks off and what it'll offer us. Yeah,
I thought he was good at Ibrox at left-back. So if he can do that, playing in probably one of the hardest roles to sort of incorporate yourself in terms of defending, then he's going to be, quite frankly, unreal on the right-hand side as a right-back in his proper position. I mean, if you're playing for Croatia, you're no mug to begin with. So I really like the way Ralston's played this season and that, but I'll be honest, on Saturday, I am expecting Juranovic to start, because see, if you play 3 games for Croatia and you get man of the match in one of the games, yep, I think you've got to play for Celtic. I don't think we're in a position.
That's a point I didn't even get to yet. The fact he did pick up man of the match in one of the games. You know, this is a guy that is the starting right back for Celtic, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of those crosses that he has at his disposal. That was one of the things that we seen in the videos when we were all getting buzzing because we were linked to this guy. The pace in which he whips the ball in, it's going to be an attacker's paradise, basically, to pardon the pun. But Giacomakis wanting to get on the end of them. He's definitely got a lot of range in his passing. He looks like a polished player. You've seen the way he was touching the ball at Ibrox. You're like, this guy's a player. You just know within 5-10 minutes of watching a guy, you're like, this guy knows his game. He knows it won't take long for him to sort of incorporate himself into the team. So I'm really looking forward to him sort of taking the right back position at his own, because I think it's when rather than if with Juranovic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And finally, the last player that was on a senior international break, Tom Rogic. He made a grand return to the Australian national team, played 2 games, basically played 90 minutes in both games, Ryan, which is in between club. You know, it's just unusual here for Rogic. Played 90 minutes against Vietnam, played 87 minutes against China, and in that 87 minutes against he managed to get an assist. Tom, they were raving from what I heard, the Australian fans, to see him back in the international team, and that's just a fair reflection on how he's been for both club and country, right?
Yeah, he's a man reborn. I remember seeing the headlines shortly before the Howe deal collapsed, and Ange sort of became the forerunner that he was going to focus on Celtic and focus on getting his mojo back, and he certainly has done that. Ange didn't throw him in the first team straight away as well. That's something that's got to be noted against Midtjylland. I don't think he played. Did he not come off the bench or something? He wasn't a starter up until maybe the first league game, and then once we saw him, he was just dropping 8, 9 out of 10s every week, which was absolutely brilliant. He's a guy he's a player reborn. It's because we've got a manager that I don't think he's had a manager that's believed in him since Brendan Rodgers. I think Lennon the first time didn't get Tom Rogic. That's why he sent him out on loan twice. I had to take until Ronnie Dyler came in for him to get a proper chance in the team. Obviously, Rodgers totally transformed him as a player. And then the second time round, I think Lennon was playing Rogic out of prestige more than anything else, because he was a player that the fans love, and a player that there would be a lot of questions asked if he wasn't playing in most games. But now he's under a manager that really believes in him, that knows his body as well, because he was talking about that in a press conference. He's like, oh, Tom's had problems with his body, the way getting through games and such. So it's good that we get a manager that understands him and understands how to get the best out of him, and you're seeing that in the pitch now. The only thing is, I mean, I like seeing Rogic doing well internationally, but I've just got this sort of image in my head.
The psychology is still there. The psychology is still there from the past, isn't it?
It's difficult to shake it, because we've seen it happen so many times. He plays well, and then he'll come back from international break with an injury, or he'll come back jet lagged, because it's a big journey back from Australia to Scotland, 24 hours or thereabouts. It's not ideal for players coming back, and that is obviously the risk that you have with getting these players from that sort of qualifying group, like Furuhashi as well, you could say, because they have to do big long journeys as well. So I mean, these are risks that you just have to take, but I just hope he's in good condition for Saturday. But if not, we'll definitely get numbers in midfield to sort of, and if he was even on the bench, it would be fine if we could just bring him on for half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing Rogic back. Look, he's been someone who I didn't have enough faith in at the start of the season. I didn't think he'd be able to return to a club level that was good enough, never mind an international level that fans are raving about. So good on Tom. You know, I love to see him doing well, and he's a guy that grabs your attention every time. Brilliant with the ball at his feet. It'll be hopefully an easy enough sort of gelling in to the team once again, rather than coming back, as you said, jet lagged and maybe, you know, a little bit tired and fatigued. Hopefully that manages to just be avoided completely, and we have a man who's ready to go and fit firing again in the next portion of the season. Finally, before we end off the stream, very, very briefly, we'll talk about Stephen Welsh, Adam Montgomery. Both of them featured for the Scotland under-21s over this international break. Ryan, I think it's safe to say these are two guys, as my camera just goes off there, I think it's safe to say that these are two guys that are only, you know, a matter of, especially Welsh's case, Welsh is a matter of games away from being a senior international. And I think Adam Montgomery, and I think that Montgomery is showing that he's going to be a future international as well. I was very impressed from what I've seen of both players.
I think the thing for Montgomery as well, and I'm taking it back to a more generalised sort of point with Ange Postecoglou, he didn't bring in an out-and-out left-back in the summer. Maybe he sees a lot more in Montgomery. Obviously, he's getting played ahead of Bowley in terms of the pecking order, and people are coming on as subs. So he must see something in Montgomery that he can work on, and he sees him in the first team in the not so distant future, or starting games, which is absolutely brilliant. It's good to see those two players playing for the under-21s, because I don't know, I think Montgomery can still play for the under-18s. So it's good that he's playing above his sort of age. And Stephen Welsh, he's got to be looking at the fact that Grant Hanley picked up a booking last night that will rule him out of the game against Israel. Now's your chance. Make your point known to the manager. Make your point known to Steve Clarke that you're ready to step into this team. Because I think he's the thing about Stephen Welsh. He's really, really impressed me. He's got to a level that I didn't really expect him to get to.
Exactly.
And he's working so hard. You can tell that Ange is really happy with the way he's progressing. His passing is brilliant. He acts taller on the pitch than what he is, because he's quite a small centre half, but he's quite dominant in the air, which is good. So he's coming along very nicely in terms of a player developing game by game. And we'll just see where he gets to. It might come as too soon, the game against Israel and the Faroe Islands, but if he keeps on playing, then I'm sure he'll get called up sooner rather than later.
Brilliant. And that'll about do us, because I'm going to have to let you get along and march into your B team game tonight. I've also got a podcast to hurry up and edit for the TSF channel, so we're both very busy. Ryan, once again, thanks for coming on. The international break is thankfully coming to an end. I just want to get back to Celtic related topics. Managed to blag myself an away ticket for Livingston next week, Ryan. Away days return. Of course, Ross County this weekend, so keep an eye on the channel, and the podcast will be returning over the weekend as well. So make sure to just keep an eye out on the channel for everything Celtic related. As I said at the start of the stream, as I'll say now, unless if you're watching this a recording or whatever, please make sure to hit that big red subscribe button, as we're only about 200 subs away from 30k. Ryan, thank you very much once again for joining me.
Oh, Ryan's gone. I don't know if he's coming back. We'll see if he comes back. I think he's turned himself off.
I can't believe that. I pressed the wrong button. I pressed leave studio rather than end broadcast.
I know. He gave me the reins for a couple of seconds there. So
Did you go berserk there?
I used every single profanity you can think of.
Thank you for covering. Right, lads, thanks very much for watching. Sorry for the technical issues as the night went on, but it's fine. Right, see y'all.